Can you hear me now? Can you see me? There we go. Okay, that was weird. I was literally just like talking to myself because I didn't know that it had froze. Um, I don't know. Sorry about that. Sweet. All right. So now if you can hear me and you can see me, where's everyone from? So I'm coming at you from Portland, Maine. Maybe if you guys could just type in your chat, what's going on? Where are you from? And while you guys do that, I'm just going to give you a quick layout. If you haven't yet used this platform yet, the chat is for you guys to talk to each other, to talk to me. I'll look at the chat, but sometimes it goes really fast. So if you have questions, definitely head over to the Ask a Question area so that you can post your question in there. And even if you don't have a question, it's worth it to look in there so that you can upvote other people's. And a lot of what I'm going to do tonight is really answer questions, because note taking is not really like a lecture that I'm about to give you. It's more of like, I need to help you figure this out. So I want you to ask questions. I want you to upvote each other's question so that I can kind of answer the most most popular ones. Let's see. I also had to put up a poll here. I'm going to use a world history chapter from AMSCO. It was pretty close for a while, but it doesn't matter. I'm not actually like going to be talking about the content at all. So no matter where I actually take notes from, what I'm going to talk about tonight, you could use for any single subject. It doesn't matter. And ultimately you can combine them, and maybe you already have something that works for you. So I'm going to ask you guys one more question as I get set up in the chat. Look like you guys are from all over, which is awesome, by the way. Sweet. So in the chat, if you also could give me, let's say 0 to 5, 0 being I literally never take notes because I don't know how, like I just can't figure them out. And a 5 being I'm a master at taking notes. I'm super good at this. All right. So woo, now we're jumping. All right, cool. So a lot of 3s, some 2s, definitely a few 1s, 4s, and all over the place. A 6. Okay, so listen, ultimately, note-taking is something that you've got to figure out how to do that works for you, right? So, I'm going to go over like a bunch of different options tonight, and so that you can see some different examples. And I really suggest that you try them, do some like trials, try one out for a week, see how you do in the next test. But for those of you that said, I'm a 5, I'm a 6, like I feel like I'm really good at note taking, jump in and let's help each other out. Okay, so if there are questions in the ask a question area that you feel like you have a good answer to, please go in and answer them. If you feel like someone asked something in the chat and you're like, I've tried that and like I have an idea, help each other out. So we're going to work together on this. Let's see. Okay, so let me just share my screen. Okay. All right. Actually, so here's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to share this chapter. This is AMSCO chapter of the Mongols. Just have the PDF of it. And so what I'm going to do is talk about a couple of different options that you have with note taking. All right. So before I show you how to do this, why take notes? I know for a lot of you, it's like notes feel like this chore, right? You get assigned it every week. You have to do it, every few days. It's always this it's always just this thing that's weighing on you. It's like whenever you finish one chapter, you have to do another chapter. And anyways, so just to clarify, you guys, just as you're typing in the chat, this is nothing, what I'm going to talk about has nothing to do with the Mongols. Okay, so if you're not taking world, then is this working for you guys? Okay. All right, awesome. Some people, it seems like it's not working. If it's not working, just refresh. Okay, so anyways, so I'm not going to be talking about the Mongols at all. I'm just going to talk about how to take notes. But what I was saying is why take notes? So ultimately, AP exams are testing whether or not you have, hang on one second. Here you go. Okay, so the AP exam is testing whether or not you have, an actual mastery of that subject. So the actual test is going to be on all of it. So why are you taking notes? It's so that by the time you get to the end of the year, you don't have to go back and read the whole textbook, because you're not going to do that anyways. That would be a terrible way to study, right? So you are trying to track down the things that matter the most. All right, so it looks like I'm going to pause for 1 second, y'all. It looks like it's working for some people and not for others. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me refresh just to make sure this is working for everyone. BRB. All right, whatever. So it looks like if you still can't see me, it's maybe worth it for you to try to use Google Chrome. I think it works best there. But it's definitely up and running. So just try to change it out or download the Crowdcast app, and that might work for you. So, okay, so you're taking notes so that you can track down the things that matter the most to, knowing this subject. And so for each exam, each time you have an assessment in class, each time you have a test or you have to write an essay, your teacher is just giving you like little checkpoints for that bigger thing, right? So it's like, of this chapter, of this time of history, of this concept in biology, whatever, what is it that you're going to have to know later, right? So that's why you take notes. That's really like the ultimate goal here. And it's important that you like go into note taking with that in mind, because otherwise it just becomes this like thing that you like kind of do robotically. And it's not about that, right? Like teachers don't assign it just like for fun. It's really just so that you can actually keep track of things. Also, taking notes helps you remember things. It really does. Like when you write things by hand, you are going to have a better chance of remembering what you're actually writing, right? And so for some people, that may not feel like that's true, like that, whatever, but I'm pretty sure there's some science on that. So the other piece of that is, sometimes students like to type their notes, but you really can remember a lot more if you decide to handwrite them. So highly suggest that you handwrite your notes and that you avoid typing them, and for sure, avoid copying them, because that's just a huge waste of your time and you're not learning anything from it anyways. All right, so let's see. Let me actually share my screen again. Let's talk about okay, for those of you that it's not working, I really don't know why, to be honest. The replay will be up and I'll kind of send out a little cheat sheet after. Yeah, I mean, I'll send out some stuff after so that you have what I'm talking about. I don't know. And no, teachers are not obligated to say that we should handwrite notes. I'm not contractually obligated by anyone. So what I'm telling you is just like really what I think is best. For some people, hearing things helps you remember things best. So if that's you, then you should, spend some time actually reading your notes aloud. Whether you read them to yourself or to someone else, doesn't matter. And so, all right, so one of the ways that is like one of the most popular forms of note taking is 2-column notes, also known as like Cornell style notes. This is definitely the style that like I would say most students are familiar with, that, teachers have kind of taught you this before. And so essentially what you would do in 2-column notes is fold the paper over. Should like have a piece of paper. Fold the paper over and just like create 2 columns. The left side's going to be main ideas. The right side's going to be just notes. And then at the bottom, just like save a piece for later. And essentially what you do, and this is really good style of notes for like listening to lectures or for actually like reading chapters that have different sections to them, because then it becomes it's pretty easy to set it up, right? So the main idea, like the top of the actual page, would just be the Mongols and interregional empires, you know, whatever that title is of your chapter. And then one main idea could be, you know, the Mongols and their surroundings, Genghis Khan, right? So you have these different main ideas. You could even put like these subheadings on main ideas. And then on the right column, you would just sort of bullet point the most important things, right? So this is saying this chapter here is going to talk about the Mongols and their surroundings. So then I'm wondering, like, where do they live, right? Like this is clearly going to tell me about what the surroundings were like of the Mongols. So all I need to do is bullet point just a little bit about their environment, right? So they're pastoralists. They live in the Gobi Desert, right? They are pastoral nomads. Like, I'm just sort of looking for these like key words that tell me a little bit about where they live. You know, and like, you also have to consider too, like, you're doing this for a bigger purpose. You are taking a test in your class. You are, you know, taking the exam for College Board at the end of the year. They're not going to ask you exactly what animals the Mongols herded. You know, like, the fact that they are herders is relatively important. Again, they're not going to just straight up ask you about that. Like, just think, is this like part of like a larger idea, or is this like a tiny little fact that I really don't need to know? That's sort of the difference. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so you guys can definitely, it seems like it's working for most people. So yeah, if you can't see it, this will replay and we'll be able to go back to this anytime. Okay. The other piece of Cornell notes that is super useful. So, you know, first you've got your main ideas. That's just going to be like Mongols and the surroundings. And then you just bullet point what were their surroundings. And then you kind of finish out that page. At the bottom of the page, or even just do this at the end of the chapter, just sort of do a little summary, like 4 to 5 sentences or a little bit less, of just like, what exactly is this about, right? And that wouldn't happen after each of these things. That would happen after, you know, maybe after one page. You could do it at the bottom of every page. You could do it at the end of every chapter. Sometimes teachers require certain things, so, you know, do that if your teacher wants. But right, so basically that's kind of what 2-column looks like. It's just kind of main ideas and notes. And so the other thing is, all right, so I'm going to head over to answer these questions after. So I'm just going to kind of run through the different options, and then I'll answer more specific questions. Okay, so what else was I going to say? The other thing about any notes is that you don't want to write like a ton of stuff down, right? The whole point is that you are condensing what you're reading, right? So there's no like science to it, right? There's not like a magic number of notes that you should have for every chapter, or why even have read it. Like, there's no magic number. It's really just about like condensing it down as far as you can go with it still having enough detail to make sense, right? You could take one sentence of notes on an entire chapter and it can make total sense and it can be like the thesis of the chapter, but are you then going to be able to explain that one sentence? You know, like, would you be able to answer any question about it? So unless you have like a photographic memory, chances are no. So that's the point of taking notes. So you want to get it as short as possible, but as detailed as possible, which is a super vague way of saying, like, there's no way to answer that question. That this is a really popular question that you guys are asking, of like, how long should they be? There's no exact science to it. It's just like, as long as they need to be, but as short as they can be. So, you know, if we're looking at this section on Genghis Khan, you know, generally a lot of chapters, what they do right in that first section after like a bigger heading like this right here is like background information that isn't all that important to the larger like concept that you need to know, but it is just like useful to know to understand this. So that's even true here. Like, they're talking about Genghis Khan's like upbringing, right? And it's kind of just talking about like how he got his name and some of his like, early actions. So all right. So can you guys just give me like a thumbs up if it is working for you? Because I'm just seeing stuff of it not working. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So for those of you that it's not working for, I really don't know. I'm going to look into that another time. But for you, for now, you can watch the replay later. And I'm also going to send out just like a rundown of this. Okay. All right. So anyways, the first paragraph of most sections is kind of fluff. Do not write down every detail in that first paragraph. Look through it and read it, but it's not. Oh, that's why. Okay, listen, if you are a Fiveable teacher or whoever just typed that, you need to log out. You can't watch this logged in as me because I'm the person that's doing this. So I'm not sure who's signed in. There's some other Fiveable teacher that signed in. So whoever just wrote working fine for me. And message me on Slack so I know who did it, just so that it should work now, but we can't both be in here. All right. That should have fixed it. All right. Anyways, so all right, I'm getting all kinds of like off tonight because of this. So the first paragraph, kind of fluffy. All right, so that's kind of 2 column notes. Just a rundown is where you're just sort of like taking out, just the basics of main idea, use the headings to tell you those main ideas, and then bullet point important information. And then summarize it at the end to just give you a quick place to look if you're wondering, like, what were these notes about? Okay, the second way that you can do this is just like a straight outline, right? So let me close this one and share a different one. All right, never mind. Okay, so with an outline, it's pretty much just like, oh, here we go. How to take notes. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you later. This document, I'll share this with you after, because I just sort of bulleted out exactly what I'm going to talk about tonight. And so this is done through like an outline style, where it's just like the first heading or the headings become just like numbers, and you just sort of like indent from there, right? So I don't think I can share my screen twice, so I can't show you both of these, but basically if you're in the Mongols chapter, it would be like number 1, Mongols and their surroundings, and then you kind of say a little something about that, and then you could indent under that, right, A or 1 or anything like that, and then you can actually just outline it. So it's pretty much the same as 2 column notes. It's just written as more of like a list rather than 2 columns. So this is where it becomes your like aesthetic choice of which one do you prefer. Do you like organizing it so that I have it in 2 columns? Maybe you like being able to like quiz yourself by folding it, or maybe you just prefer to just have a piece of paper and write it down, right? Like, and just sort of list it through. Either way, it doesn't matter. You're just sort of writing the important information. So huge, just like general caution for you is, for almost any of your textbooks, you can probably find the outlines online. And if you're just copying those down, you're wasting your time. Like, your teacher might know that you're copying them down. Your teacher might not know that you're copying them down. But either way, this is for you. Like, you are the one that's taking this exam. I want you to get the credit in May. And so do not just copy down outlines that doesn't actually say anything. So you could instead, you could use that outline as your headings, right? The headings are just coming from the section headings anyways. But you need to then go through and bullet point or color code. So some of you guys are talking a little bit about color coding. Obviously, like, notes can become these beautiful pieces of art. Like, I've seen some just unbelievably nice looking notes. So if you want to color code things, if it becomes, more fun for you or more easy to understand things, color code away. Have fun, get some highlighters, get some stickers, I don't know, like do whatever. Yeah, you can look on Tumblr, you can look on Instagram for just pictures of notes, and there's all kinds of things, or like bullet journaling, right? So any one of those things would give you ideas for other, like the 3 ways that I'm telling you tonight are the most like, simple, boring ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to do it, but it's all just about like, how can you organize notes? So the last thing that you can do, and this would be like, I personally think that this is like the best one for lectures, especially like, it's not too long of a lecture. It's also good for just like shorter sections, or well, actually it's really good for anything, but I like this one. Yeah, PowerPoint lectures or any type of lecture like that. Essentially what you would do, this is just a mind map. So going back to this Mongols chapter, what you'll do is just write the main topic in the middle of your paper. So in this case, the Mongols. Draw some kind of shape around it, it doesn't matter. And then as you read or as you're listening to a lecture, just connect little lines to other topics that are related, right? So you have Mongols, and then you have, pastoral nomads. And then, then you keep going. Genghis Khan, and then you can kind of attach under him conquest, war, and then write out little like bullet each tiny little thing so that you can sort of say, then you can kind of say like you can kind of see like visually how these different things connect, right? Because then you might write that Genghis Khan conquered different areas, and then as you are continuing to read, then you're going to start reading about those conquests. So then you could bullet point off of them. So you can kind of create this whole like visual. This is a really, really good way to review. So especially like once you've already done a topic and you're reviewing for a huge chapter or unit, take that main idea and review like this. That's like a really good way to study. But even if you just take notes like this, like while you're in a lecture, I think it's sometimes you get like caught up in the how to organize a lecture that you end up just sort of listing things out. But if you do it in a way that's more, visual like that, it can be kind of quicker, and you can just get it down on paper and then reorganize it later. And that would be a really good use of your time. So that would be mind mapping. The other thing that I was going to say about outlining is that something else you could do just as a really simple way to take notes is as you go through your chapter, change the headings into questions. So instead of writing down the Mongols and their surroundings, literally write the question, where do the Mongols live? Right? Just change this into a question that now this paragraph is going to answer, and write down the question itself. And then just bullet point the answer to the question. Right? Same thing. Who was Genghis Khan? How did he begin his conquests? Like what experience did Genghis Khan have at war? And then you just sort of bullet point these things down as you're reading. It might even help you to actually answer. It might even help you to actually write less. So for some of you guys that are writing 8-page notes, that's a little long. So if you need to write less, if you change the heading into a question, it might just help you synthesize it so that you can, as you're reading, only write things down that actually relate to that question. If it's not related to the question, probably not important. And this would obviously work for works for any subject, right? Just change it. What is, who is, where was, anything like that. All right, I'm gonna click out of that. Okay, I'm gonna go into the questions. Okay, so if you haven't gone into the questions, just go in and upvote just to make it easy for me to like answer the ones that you want the most. Okay, so this one question that just was in here just says, what should I do when I can't come up with questions? Your questions are thoughtful, multifaceted. Just start with whatever questions you can come up with. So it's really just a matter of like put a question mark at the end of the actual heading and then just add a few words just to make it an actual question, right? Just think of who, what, where, when, why, how, and then just use that. And then from there, like as you do this more and more, you'll be able to sort of see it, right? You'll be able to see the paragraph, see the heading, and kind of know where it's going. And then you can kind of make that jump to a more like higher level question. So I would just say start where you're at. Okay. All right, let's go into these questions. All right, how do we know how much notes we should have? I always end up with 5 to 6 pages per lesson. None of it's included in my tests. Okay, so like I said before, and look, a lot of you guys are upvoting this. There is no exact number, okay? I would say if you want, like if you really need some kind of number, and this is just for, by the way, notes that are done on an outline or 2-column. Mind maps would look a lot different, but for notes that are just kind of taking up paper, let's say you have let's say for any chapter, your notes should maybe be like a quarter of the number of pages. Like that kind of makes sense, right? So like for a 9-page like AMSCO chapter, you're looking at like 2.5, right? Like something around that, like 2.5 pages would make sense. Excuse me. For a 30-page chapter, then you're looking at what, like 7? And even that seems a little bit much. I think you could do a 30-page chapter in like, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe even less. So again, no exact science. Don't take my word for that number, but do it in the least amount of pages you can that has the most amount of detail, if that makes sense. The most relevant details. All right. How do we know what is important to write and what we should write down? This is it, right? This is key. Anybody can take out a piece of paper and copy down a chapter. The difference between people who know how to take notes and people who don't is the people who know what to write down. So to be honest with you, this is one of those things that comes with practice as well. So the best method that I've been able to use to help myself and help other students is those questions. Right. So if you're looking at a section of any textbook and you're like, I don't know what's important, then really try to change those headings into questions and then answer the question. I found that helps me to like stay on track. Like if I'm taking notes, that's sort of what I end up doing in my head. So I kind of know where this is going. And just remember, like all the paragraphs in your textbook, they're written just like any other paragraph, the first line of every paragraph tells you what that paragraph is about. Let me pull up, actually, I'm going to keep answering that question and pull up this chapter again, just so you can see what I'm talking about. And then you can kind of use the notes to do a lot of the work for you, Oh, I closed it. What was I thinking? All right. Hang on, y'all. Here we go. Okay, let's go. Okay, so here are the notes again. Let me just show you. So here, Mongolian Empire expands. Okay, so my question there would just be like, maybe I'm not even sure yet what the question is. Maybe it is, how did the Mongolian Empire expand, or where? Or maybe it's just like a general, maybe I think it's going to include both of those things. So I want to try to go higher up. So like, to what extent did the Mongolian Empire expand? Something like that. You can look, so each one. So like this is saying 3 of Genghis Khan's grandsons set up their own khanates, further expanding the empire into Asia and Europe. So then it says in the first sentence here, it's kind of leading into it. So this is even like this paragraph is almost like the entire paragraph here is like a hook. And then you have down here, the Golden Horde continued pushing westward. Okay, this whole paragraph is going to be about the move west for the Mongols. And then, so if I'm reading this, I know just by reading that one sentence that I need to figure out in this paragraph where, like, what happened in the West, right? Like, where did they go? And then I might just be trying to write down the where and the how, right? Like here, as a result. Okay, so here's here, maybe I even just write cause and effect, right? Something happened and that led to this other thing. Same thing here. The Mongols ruled northern Russia by working through existing Russian rulers who sent regular tributes. There's your like thesis statement of this paragraph. Same thing. Now I'm just need to like gather a little bit more details about that. So, all right, so that's that. All right, done answering that. Okay, so yeah, so that would be my suggestion for cutting down on making sure you're writing down the things that actually matter. I'm like looking at the chat and then looking at the questions. Okay. How much time should we be dedicating to studying per test? And would you recommend studying for a subject even if you don't have a test? If so, how much time per subject per week? Awesome question. So just to kind of relate this question to the last question, something that you should start doing just to make sure that you're writing down what's actually important and that you're taking an appropriate amount of time to do that. After you get your test back, take your notes that were for the same concept and highlight in your notes anything that was actually on the test, right? And so what you want are notes that are perfectly aligned, right? And you're not going to necessarily get perfect on that, but you don't want your notes to have a lot of extra fluff that you didn't need, right? Because studying would be really fast if it was like, here's 10 facts to know, and all 10 are going to be on the test. You would just memorize those 10 things. So, the longer your notes are, the longer it's going to take you to study because you're telling yourself that you need to know more. So it's really good to get on your next test, try this. Highlight the information in your notes that was actually on the test and just see where you're at. And then look closely, like what are you writing down that didn't need to be there? And next time, try to make sure you know what that information is in the next chapter and don't write that down. It's probably not important. So in terms of like how much time to study for a test, it depends on what your test is going to be, how big your test is. It depends on how well you already know it, right? Like another thing that you need to do is to focus on studying the things that you don't know. So go through your notes, take one pass through the whole thing and get yourself a little like coding system, maybe with, a symbol or with a color, and categorize them into like, red, yellow, green, right? So if you see it and you're like, I know that super well, mark it green. If you kind of know it, you're not sure, mark it yellow. And if you super don't know it, mark it red. And then go back through it. Focus on the red first. That's the stuff that you really didn't know. Then go back through and focus on the yellow. So if you kind of organize it like that, you shouldn't, it's hard to tell how long studying should be. But if you're not, let's say you don't have a test this week. If this question is like, should I study anyways? It's always good to just read over everything you did. So in a given day, just taking a glance through your notes, even just spending 10 minutes doing that can massively help you for the next time that you have to remember that material. So even if you just take a few minutes and you just sort of read through it every day, like pick a time during the day that works. So maybe it's when you get home from school, maybe it's during lunch, pick a time and like every day for 5 minutes, just read over the most recent notes that you did for that class. It shouldn't have to take you that long. It's just kind of skimming through. And maybe even then make a little note if you are reading it over, because you're not going to spend time studying then. But if you're going to read it over, make a little note next to the ones that you're like, I really don't know that. I know I need to study that later. Then the next day when you pass over it, or when you're going go back to actually study and really focus on the things that you marked that you didn't know. So that was what I would say. It was a long-winded answer. Okay, so sweet. So the next question is exactly what I just said. Okay, if we're taking notes on a pre-recorded lecture, like a PowerPoint, should we pause as we go or just watch it through and take notes while watching? This is a super good question. It also relates to just kind of watching any video, right? If you're just watching a crash course or videos on our YouTube channel or any of the replays that Fiveable has, should you watch it through or should you pause? This is, again, like going to depend on how you process information. So for me, if it's a short video, if it's 10 minutes or less, what I do is watch it through and I don't do anything. I just watch it and then I go back through it and pause and write things down. Because then I've already kind of seen where it's going and I've already absorbed some of it. So I have a better sense of like a big idea, a big picture. So I find that super useful if it's 10 minutes or less. Although some people are able to just hear it once and write it down and that's cool. Or first time through, pause it, go back, and that's cool too. That's just kind of what I like. If it's something that's a lot longer, I would just sort of chunk that out. So maybe I would watch it for a certain amount of time and then go back through. If it's like a 60-minute lecture, for example, maybe I just sort of find like a good stopping point when there's like a new topic and then watch it until then and then go back and then take notes on that section and then do the same thing with the next part. I would really recommend trying to like chunk things down is better. If you try to take in too much information at once, that can be overwhelming. Okay, what's the best way to remember the notes that we wrote? I can write several pages of notes, but barely remember anything for a test. So this all comes down to studying. So you really need to learn what works for you. And I know as much as you want there to be some secret to this, some magic thing that you just didn't know about, there really isn't like some science to this. There are a lot of different options in studying. It all comes down to like how you learn best, writing, reading, talking, practicing, creating, attaching things to like movement. Like there's a lot of ways to do this. So figure out which of those works best for you. And the best way to figure it out is to just pick one and try it this week. So let's say this week, you're gonna use your notes and you're gonna create quick like Quizlet cards. Break down your notes and create Quizlet cards for your notes, or just make your notes on Quizlet. I don't know, just an idea. And then you're gonna try during the day, shuffle through the Quizlet cards, once or twice, right? Like just go through them. You have your phone on you anyways. You're waiting for the bus, you're waiting for a ride, you're waiting for dinner to be ready, you're waiting for something else. Pull out your phone and shuffle through your notes. Can't hurt, right? It doesn't have to be a long thing, it's just quick. So that'll be fine. So like TED Talk on remembering things by attaching them to body parts. So you literally could attach them to like movements, right? Like dances. Like you could do weird, I don't know, there's all kinds of like drama games like this where you can make up some sort of symbol with your hands, with your arms, with your whole body, and you can attach that to like some sort of concept, and that might be really a good way to remember. You also could just like attach things to songs, right? Change lyrics of songs, and then you can kind of sing tunes of the concepts. If you can remember lyrics really well, you can remember concepts really well too if you apply them to a song. Other ways to remember notes: talk to someone, take notes, have your friend take notes, and then meet up at some point before the test and just tell each other the notes. Like even if it feels weird, it's really useful for both of you to not only read the notes aloud, but explain them in your own words to someone else. So if you have a friend that's taking the same class, highly recommend that. All right. How do I organize my notes? Yeah, so I mean, you kind of have to go in with a plan and then be willing to adjust, right? So decide ahead of time. I want to organize them by, main concept. I want to organize them in 2 columns or an outline, whatever, and then just sort of stick to it. And I think be okay with redoing them if it's really a mess. Or just using highlighters to help you add an extra layer of organization, right? So like the first layer is just where on the paper does it go? The second layer is like, what can I add to it to make it stand out from something else? So some people were talking about using Post-its or highlighters or pens or stickers or anything really that you can use to like go and highlight all the dates, and then they won't feel so all over the place. You'll be able to see them really quickly. Yeah, so like, let's see, whenever I have to write something down, I check with someone else and see if it's similar. That's awesome, right? So like just checking, yeah, so even if you just talk to a friend about how they're organizing their notes, it can be just useful to see what they wrote down and see if it kind of matches what you wrote down. All right, it's not letting me see anything. No. Too much notes is too much, and how much is too little. So no answer to that. Depends. Let's see. Okay. When do we know it's something important to remember, or how to remember important things? So like same with this. It's just very much, it's one of these things that you get better at as you get older. I literally just had a conversation with a friend about this, about how, like when I was in high school and college, I feel like I had the same issue, and now I know how to do it, but I don't remember the moment that I learned how to do it. Right. So it just kind of happened over time with a lot of notes, which obviously isn't ideal of like advice for me to give you, except that it's just about knowing what, like, for that topic, what is it that is going to be like test worthy, and I think you can break down any concept into like fluff details, and like this is like the meat of it, like this is what actually explains this concept. And so the better you can sort of divide out information, that's the difference, right? So all the extra details about Genghis Khan's boyhood, like nobody cares, but they do care about what he did as a conqueror, what he did as a leader, right? The like things he's remembered for, right? And so focus on that. Don't focus your notes on all the extra stuff that the books like to put in there, because it humanizes them, right? It's nice to know those things because it reminds us that people in the past are real people and they had lives, but you're not going to be tested on those things. So, right. So, river valleys or trading items, you can go on and on about trading items, at a certain point, just remember a few, right? Just write down 3. Like you don't need to list 15 of something. Just write down 3. Okay. I don't know when this was. Basics of Cornell and what should be in the columns. So like I think there's like a specific way that Cornell notes are taught, and I wasn't particularly taught that super specific way. So just to make it easy, I would say, main ideas or like questions on the side, on the left side, and then on the right side you would have, or I guess I can like just show you this from the opposite way. So on the left side you would have, main ideas, questions. On the right side, just bullets to kind of explain those. Are color-coded notes good? Yeah, they're awesome. Because they just, like I said, it's like first layer of organization is just where do you put it? The second layer is adding another way to identify something. So if you are color coding your notes, it just shows that you are thinking about it even more than that, right? Like you're adding another layer of organization that's useful. So yes, it's good. And drawing little cartoons, yeah, that's super good, right? Like if you are someone who likes to draw, likes to doodle, do it and make it relevant. right? Like make it relevant, like just draw things that are like useful. Yeah, integrate a kind of bullet journaling system. Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, this last sentence is what's so important. It's proven to be very effective for me. That's exactly the whole point, right? Like you need to find something that works for you, and don't try to fit yourself into any other system perfectly. You know, like teachers aren't going to teach you note taking styles that include doodling because that seems like outside of the norm, but who cares? Right? Like if you want to doodle your whole notes, make the whole thing a picture, you know, like whatever, like make the whole thing a rap, like whatever, make it all a poem. It doesn't matter. It's just learn this stuff, right? All right, so let me do a few more. So if you could just go into the questions and answers and just upvote questions just so that I can spend the last 10-ish minutes on the questions that you really want me to cover. So I'm gonna delete this one. It sucks that this didn't work for a bunch of people tonight. Okay, this one was how much, I think this was from before, but how much time should you dedicate to reviewing your material during the week? I would say pick a number that is realistic for you. So, start with 25, 30 minutes per week, you know, it doesn't have to be a marathon. Start with something that is manageable for you that you can really commit to. Pick a time and put it in your calendar and put a reminder on your phone. You know, every Tuesday at 7 p.m., you're going to review your notes for 30 minutes. Every Tuesday and Thursday, you're going to review your notes for 20 minutes. Just pick a time and commit to it. The most important thing is consistency, not like quantity of time, right? Like if you can study for 6 hours 1 week, but in 3 months, you're not going to be in a good spot. Right? It's better to do like a little bit more times. How many notes is too little? Okay, I'm gonna skip that one. I already did that. Okay. Okay, this is a good question here. During lectures, I have trouble focusing on what the teacher is saying and on writing the notes at the same time. How do I absorb the information from both? This is a really good question. So what you should do is ask your teacher for either the teacher to print them or for them to send it to you beforehand. You can print any PowerPoint with the slide and then space for notes. And so if you had the slides in front of you, it's a lot easier to not to write down every single word, but instead be able to actually listen and then just write down things to remember, right? Things to remind yourself of. So I highly recommend asking your teacher, tell your teacher, look, I want to try out this process. I've never done this before, but I think it will help me during lectures to process information. So can you print the slides for me before class? Or can you send them to me so that I can print them? And then in class, I just want to have them on my desk so that I can listen to the lecture and add to it and not feel like I'm behind in writing. Ask for it, right? So worth it. Yeah, so some teachers will even just share their stuff, right? And that's awesome. But in any real life situation, you get that. So ask your teachers. You said not to copy. Do you mean summarize what you read? No. So copying and summarizing is totally different, right? So I'm just saying, if you Google any textbook and chapter 8 outline, you can probably find the outline online, but it's a huge waste of your time to just copy that down and then turn it in, right? Like that. I know a lot of students will do that, and it's just it's just a complete waste of your time. So don't do that. But with summarizing, that's super important, right? And that's even one of the most important things you can add to your notes to help you remember them. Because in summarizing, you're synthesizing, you're combining this information to figure out what's the main idea here, what's actually important. So at the end of any style notes, I think it's really useful to write one paragraph or less, just giving a quick overall overview summary of it. That's what I would say. Could a T-chart help you? T-chart and 2-column is the exact same thing. Let's see. Okay. For A-push, let's say you are reading about a war such as the War of 1812. How much information should I take notes of for major events? Okay, for any event in history, honestly, think about cause and think about effect, okay? Like really focus your time and energy on those two pieces. For a lot of these events, there's a lot in the causes or in the effects, but that's the main piece of it. The in-between, the actual event, I mean, especially for wars, write down maybe the years, just the location, the regions of it. But ultimately, and then maybe there's one or two battles that are highlighted in your book that are worth knowing. But for the most part, the event itself gets kind of skipped. The cause and effect, that's what you're going to be asked about. That's what you need to know. Why did this happen? What happened because of it? Okay. Let's see. How would you be able to remember information for a quiz or test? Let me post this as a question. Where'd it go? Here we go. Okay, how would you be able to remember information for a quiz or a test if you were taught the lesson the day before? So when you're given a quiz or a test, in kind of rapid succession, you're going to have to start committing things to your long-term memory rather than just your short-term memory. And so what you should do is, this is where it's useful to review your notes every day, right? So if it's a pop quiz, there's only so much you can do, but during the act, while you're taking notes on something, so, okay, let's say you have to read a chapter today and you have to turn in the notes tomorrow, and you also have a quiz on what you just read. So then I would make sure that after you take notes that you do a summary, or that you go back through and highlight, green, yellow, red, right? Go back through and highlight the things that you don't understand, and then make sure you understand them. Because just because you took notes doesn't mean anything. You need to actually know it, right? So I would say spend time today taking the notes, and then spend an extra 10, 15 minutes going back over them. That's key. If you have a lecture in class, add something that you can do after your notes that will take you 5, 15 minutes, just to help you practice it again. All right. That would be one way that I would totally do it. You can look up YouTube videos on the subject to try and refresh your memory on what you learned. Yeah, so yes, okay, look, Crash Course and all the videos on YouTube are very useful. They're all awesome. The only thing you have to be careful of is that a lot of times they include far more information than you actually need. Crash Course in particular, those were not designed by AP teachers, right? So they're teaching the content. They're here's biology, which is awesome, but that's sometimes even beyond what you have to know for your test. So make sure that you look back at the actual chapter that you read and the actual notes that you took, because that's what your teacher is testing you about, right? What was in the book? What was in this thing I had you read? What was, maybe they assigned a video, then awesome. What was in my lecture? It's not going to just be anything about that topic. It's going to come from the medium that they presented you the information. So don't overload yourself with videos just to try to get more information, because that can just be a detriment too, right? Now you just have too much. So limit yourself a little bit. In my AP Bio textbook, some of our headings are key concepts. How would I make questions out of those? So I would just say you just have to be creative around that. How can you make any statement into a question? Just see if there's a way to change it into a question just to guide your reading of that paragraph. When my teacher is lecturing, I try to focus and listen, but sometimes forget how to spell important things. and end up not writing the sentence. Okay, so like something like that, like there could be a lot of reasons as to why that's happening. So I'm not going to have like a perfect answer for you of how to fix it. But ultimately your notes are your notes. So don't worry about spelling and grammar when you're taking notes. I would say just take notes in a way that's fastest for you, and don't worry about the rest. If you have to turn them in and you're worried about that, talk to your teacher, right? So just tell your teacher that, sometimes you get kind of messy and it goes kind of fast, and just let them know. And hopefully you guys can work something out. All right. Okay. Yeah, so when you take the College Board exam, they're going to focus more on the concepts and not really the people, right? So in any of the history classes, so one of the things that you can do is to sign up to, if you don't already have our, let me share this. Here we go. Okay, if you don't already have, copy. Okay, if you don't already have, okay, words, Amanda. Look, if you're not already a Fiveable member, I'm just going to put the link up here below my video. So if you do need more support in your subjects, since it's October, it's $20 per subject for the whole year, which is crazy cheap. Also, if you're wondering like what concepts are actually important for you for any subject, this link right here just goes to like a quick form that I made that you can, I'll send you the ultimate guide that I created for 9 different subjects. So if you submit that, it'll send you an ultimate guide, and I highlighted just the important things you need to know. I know that link looks a little funky. It's just like straight from where I keep emails, but you just have to just click on that and just let me know like what subjects you want, and just request the guides and it'll send them to you. And I would really recommend looking through those if you haven't already, because it is actually written down what will be on the test, right? Like out of all this stuff, the questions will come from this. And it's important as students that you know that exists, right? So really make sure that you take a look at that, because your teachers are using that to design their classes. So you should use that to organize your own learning. So anyways, that's it for tonight. Obviously it's been an hour. I know that there were some technical difficulties, and hopefully everyone can watch this after. I am going to create a sort of cheat sheet of note-taking that I will send out within the next day or two, and that will kind of give you a sense of what you need to know. For non-Fiveable members, this replay will remain up and available for now. All the other replays for all of our subjects are getting put behind within our membership area every week or so. And so if you're not a Fiveable member and you missed some of our sessions, we've had about 4 or 5 in every topic, every subject. So for that, you would need to become a member. And if you're waiting on, I don't know, next semester, the price of Fiveable is going up every month because I'm going to be hiring more teachers. And we're also going to be launching chemistry, calculus, and computer science really soon. So I'm working on those. Those will be available soon. And then if you're not a member, you'll be able to sign up for that. If you become an unlimited member, you'll get access to that when we add it. So the link, the green button is the link for becoming a Fiveable member. I will be sending the cheat sheet and the link to the replay out for everyone that registered for this event. Okay, so everyone that will get that. Good luck on your next time taking notes. I really also would highly recommend letting me know like how it went. If something I said here worked, you tried it and it worked, let me know. Tweet at me. It's @thinkfiveable, or email me and just let me know, hey Amanda, like you told me to do this thing and I tried it and it totally worked. I'd love to hear from you about that. Or if you are trying something and it's not working and you're not really sure what to do, you can reach out to me then too, right? It's just hi@fiveable.me. All right, y'all. So we will see you next week in back for our live sessions starting on Monday. And that's it. So see you later. Peace. Always got your backs. For sure.